Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It is Thursday, I think, and we are in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, and I'm going to read just a few verses. It says, whatever you do, do well. So I'm about halfway through the passage. It says, for when you go to the grave, there will be no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom. I have observed something else under the sun. The fastest runner doesn't always win the race. The strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. The wise sometimes go hungry. The skillful are not necessarily wealthy. And those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. It's all decided by chance, by being in the right place at the right time. People can never predict when hard times will come. And it goes on to give some examples of that. Sometimes declarative statements, you go, that's just not completely true. Like, some of these things have a bearing on whether you're successful or not successful. But he says it's all decided by chance. All is a big word,
Can I just say I love that this is like the opposite of Proverbs. Like reading this book through, like I just thoroughly enjoyed it this time. Maybe it's just like the season of life I'm in, but like I appreciated that. Sometimes things don't work out the way they do in Proverbs.
I was having lunch. Actually, I'm pretty sure Tyler was at this lunch, and Jonathan Martin. And we were having lunch here in town one day, and Jonathan talked about Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. He says, when you read Proverbs, everything's up and to the right. If you do this, this is going to happen. He said, but Ecclesiastes tells like just the exact opposite story. Like
everything doesn't always make sense.
That's right. It just don't work out that way.
Yeah.
And so the question that I kind of want us to dance around today is how much does chance, and there are going to be some uber spiritual people that may come across this podcast and go, oh, it ain't nothing of chance. It's a God's divine plan, whatever, how you want to say it. I don't really care how you say it. It doesn't matter to me. In this translation, he uses the word chance, and I'm pretty sure Solomon used something very similar to that. How much does chance and being at the right place at the right time have to do with success in life?
I think it's a lot. I think that like the situation, the scenario that I've heard you say a lot, and I totally agree with, is there are really good singers out there. Singers that are better than the people you hear on the radio. But if they didn't have the right producer, the right audition at American Idol or whatever, and they couldn't get through to the right people, their talent is seen in different ways in smaller venues, and they're not able to make a living at it. They
don't have the look.
Right.
I mean, there's 1,000 reasons.
Right.
Why,
There's a lot of reasons why talented people, wise people don't get maybe what they should.
I believe that about singers because I'm in the church world. I believe that about preachers. Rarely are the best preachers pastoring the biggest churches. Mm-hmm. Rarely. I mean, it's just, it didn't always work out that way. They usually have other skill sets that allow them to do that. But some of it is just being in the right place at the right time, just being fortunate enough. I would, when we're talking about preachers, to give you an example, and I'll give some personal examples as we go through this conversation. Andy Stanley is brilliant. He's a great communicator. He's an incredible leader. But he didn't get to choose to be born in Charles Stanley's home, right? Mm-hmm. And raised in a mega church prior to, with somebody who had the capacity that his father did. That's a right place, right time. You just hit the family lottery, not, I chose to do that.
But he did. He has chosen what he's going to do with
that's
his
correct.
life.
He's made the most of it.
Yeah.
But the experience that he got growing up,
right,
it played a significant role in his ability to be able to do that. And so, we can take out chance and right place at right time if we want to, but I think it matters for a lot of people. Sure, what's your input?
I mean, I think it can be both things, because you can be put in the right place at the right time, but if you don't recognize the opportunity and whether or not it's the right time to take advantage of it, then it doesn't matter if you were there or not. And sometimes, I mean, I know I've also been in situations before where it seemed like the right place, the right opportunity, but it was not the right time. And I mean, those things that look great could have been not so great if I
Mm-hmm.
had taken advantage of it in a time that wasn't a good time for that to happen.
Yeah.
But
Timing is everything.
yeah, and I've also heard people say things like, well, being born in the United States is like winning the lottery, and I agree with that for a lot of reasons, but I also think you kind of discount the fact that there were tons of decisions made by generations of other people before you that's landed you in that
Right.
spot. It wasn't like you just got dropped down out of a
Mm-hmm.
hot air balloon.
A story. Yeah.
It's right. I mean, I feel
I'm
like,
tired of flying. Let me drop them here in this country.
yeah, I mean, somebody in your past they made the decision to leave the country that they were in and come here, even if it seemed to be for terrible reasons at the
Mm-hmm.
time, it happened.
Can you, either of you, give an example where you were in the right place at the right time and it changed the trajectory of your...
I'll give the opposite.
Okay.
So right after college, when we were still living in the married dorms at Evangel, Tyler had gotten word that they were hiring for like landscaping, and like it was going to pay really well. It would give us that like few months after college, because all of our jobs were connected to the university. So when we graduated, we had no money coming in.
You guys were already married then?
We were married during our senior year. Like we married
I didn't
between
realize that.
our junior and senior year.
And you were at a Christian college because they had married dorms.
Right. And so, and weirdly enough, we were in the same
I didn't
dorm,
know that existed.
married dorm that my aunt lived in when she was married in college, like the same actual room. It was kind of weird. He got word that there was this job. He had to just go to this office, and like basically the job would be his because they needed people. It's landscaping. It's not rocket science, but we had to do an exit interview with financial aid. That person went on a lunch break when they shouldn't have, and we were sitting there an extra 30 minutes or something like that. And so by the time Tyler goes, somebody else had gone and gotten the job because it wasn't like secured. And then we ended up having to move right away. And if we would have just had that little bit of income, the married dorms were so cheap to live in, it would have given us our life trajectory literally would have been completely different if he had gotten that landscaping job for the summer for 3 months, and we could have maybe made a more planned exit where not like, yeah. So that's one time when it was just, man, if that one thing would have been different, our life would have been different.
So then you guys just ended up moving after that?
Mm-hmm.
Did either of you go see Running the Bases when Regulator sponsored it here in town?
No, I did not.
It's about Evangel. Is it a university now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's kind of the centerpiece.
Evangel is the center.
Mm-hmm, at the beginning of it. Yeah. This
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Well, that he ends up going to college there to play baseball.
Okay.
And he gets a scholarship. I don't even know if they have baseball or not. But,
oh yeah, they have lots of sports.
But he, anyways, I was just, when I was watching the movie, I was thinking about it. I'm going to continue down your path.
Okay.
While we're here, because the wrong place, wrong time is just as devastating as the right place at the right time. So my kids are about your age. You're a millennial. And in your lifetime, you have experienced 3 once in a lifetime, crisis. So, I can name 2 of them off the top of my head. So obviously you have COVID, and then you have the economic crash of 2007-8, which would have been about the time you were getting out of college, I would guess.
It was like 2008. Yeah, we graduated 2009. So right in the middle of that.
Pretty close.
Wonderful time to graduate.
Horrible economic times. That is completely different scenario from somebody who would have been born just 10 years prior to, or might even be born today. The the toll that it took on the job market, your ability to earn, all of those things that you had no control over. You didn't get control either of those situations that happened.
I mean, people who graduated 2 years after us were able to get those entry-level jobs, but with the economic crash, all the entry-level jobs, when we were applying, were like, you need 10 years experience because so many people had lost their jobs.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was a tough year to graduate. Do you have a right place, right time story that we can turn this around?
So I have an interesting right place, right time story.
Okay.
That is a blessing to me today. So in end of 2020, I sold the retail piece of the business that I owned, that I had for 30 years. And thankful that I was able to do it while I was able to do it. But in 2019, I got a call from somebody in the church who had a business, not like mine, but they did home appliances. And they said, look, this lady called me, and they have some coolers at a Family Dollar in Columbia they need removed. You should give her a call. So I call her. She's with a disposal company out of Atlanta. And she said, I have some coolers, could you go get them? And I said, sure. And so we went and got them. And I was thrilled to have them because I knew we could sell them. And she said, how much do I owe you? I said, nothing. Like, I'm happy to have them, And so the next week she calls me back and she's like, do you want more? I said, well, sure. She said, can you go to Raleigh or somewhere and pick them up? I said, sure. She said, but you can't do it for free. I have to pay you. And I was like, okay. And I get to keep them. She's like,
if you insist.
And you get to keep them. Yeah. We did that. And then we did like 7 or 8 more. And then she actually connected us with the person who was in charge of all of these. And we started doing more. Then we started selling some, to the point that by the time I sold the business, we still have this piece of it with this contract where we're responsible. They have about 15,000 stores nationwide. So, and my kids take care of, or 2 of the kids take care of these, getting rid of these coolers and freezers nationwide in all the stores. I didn't go looking for it. I didn't seek it out. It happened because they called somebody that knew me in a random town like Columbia, that they needed it done. And it's been a blessing in my life that has been phenomenal. But it was, I thank God for it. It was a providential thing. It was certainly a right place, right time thing. There were some other things that went into it, Sheryl. You mentioned, had I said, I don't have time, that changes everything. I think all I would have had to say that one thing is I don't have time today to do it. And it could have changed everything, And how many times do people, an opportunity opens up for them, the door, they're at the place and the door opens for them and they're like, I'm not going to do it. You talked about American Idol first. I watch American Idol and they said, I wouldn't be here if my wife didn't make me or my dad didn't make me, I wouldn't have come. I think it's not just enough to be there. You've got to be willing to take a swing at it, and try. Can you think of a right place, right time for you? Like this job?
I felt I was going to be hunted down, whether I would have answered the phone or not.
When I call Sheryl, she says, this ain't going to be good.
That's exactly what I said.
Every time I call you, that's this ain't going to be good, is it?
Well, yeah, a personal phone call doesn't usually.
Yeah, if I'm calling you, it's probably not good.
I honestly would say it was probably meeting my husband because we both were going to college in Greenville at the time. And I don't know that I would have met him any other time. And we just happened to have a couple of friends in common. And it could be the only good thing that came out of living in Greenville for either one of us, to be honest with you. But yeah, we have both often thought about, because, now that we have a daughter who's that age, she'll ask him, like, what do you think about the time you spent in Greenfield? He's like, well, the positive thing I have to say is I met your mom. So, but it really is one of those situations where we think, man, because I only lived there a couple of years, and if we just had not happened to have been where we were at the same time and had one mutual friend, I mean, it's still a couple of hours from here. So would we have ever met each other? I don't
Right.
know. I mean, it seemed like to us it was right place at the right time.
I don't have the answer to this, so you have to fill in some blanks
Mhm.
that I'm just curious about. If I had to guess, in that moment of your life, you weren't following Christ very closely.
No.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting that even in times when we're not necessarily following him so closely, he's still looking out for us and moving pieces in our life that are going to benefit us forever?
I mean, he and I just recently had this conversation, and I said, look at how he knew what was going to happen in our marriage and where he was going to put us and what he was going to ask us to do and how we would affect each other in a positive way, and that way in the influences that we'd have on each other's lives. Because it could have been so different for both of us had we married somebody else.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've thought many times about how thankful I am that God was looking after me when I was not looking after myself.
Thank you for joining us again today on One Single Story. Hope you'll be back tomorrow as we finish up the week talking about Ecclesiastes.